Welcome to another edition of Inside Government. I'm Peter Gay. I was watching this morning on TV Land the Andy Griffith Show, and I was kind of doing some research, but I also knew that it wasn't the type of research I really needed to do to interview the County Sheriff, Norfolk County Sheriff, Jerry McDermott. Jerry, first of all, welcome to North Attleboro.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here.
I've got to ask, and as I said, I was watching the Andy Griffith Show this morning, and I watch it because I love the show, first of all, but I thought to myself, okay, there has to be people in Norfolk County, and even Bristol County for that matter, that don't know what a sheriff does here in Massachusetts. It's certainly different than the Old West, certainly different than, I guess, even parts of the South.
It is, Peter. So there's 14 county sheriffs here in Massachusetts, and we don't go out and make the apprehensions the way they do down south or the Midwest or out west. We work with the 28 police chiefs and police departments in Norfolk County. The police will go out and make the arrests, the apprehensions, if you will. That person will then either be arraigned at court, but with COVID-19, we've done the arraignments up at the House of Correction in Dedham. So when you think of the sheriff, the simplest way to think of it is we run the jail and House of Correction, and we take care of the care, custody, and control of inmates, both pre-trial and sentenced. That's what we do on the inside, and a whole host of programs to rehabilitate people. I like to say we fix broken people. When we have somebody in our custody, usually there's drugs and alcohol involved, mental health issues. We know that they won't be staying with us for a long time. At the county level, nobody really does more than, on the long end, 2.5 years. Most people are in and out within 90 days, sometimes shorter. So in that short window that you have somebody in your care and custody, what we try to do, Peter, is make them a better person when they leave. If we have enough time to get them skilled up with a job, teach them some culinary arts skills, some landscaping or painting skills, something that can be marketable so they can go have a job, we'll do that. We'll work with them on their high school equivalency, or they might have some college level, and we'll work on college classes with them. Sad to say, the longer they're with us, the more programming they get, and usually it's beneficial to them. But the way the courts are working these days, people are in and out quickly, and many probably are better served with programs that deal with their addiction issues. We have done a pilot program at the Norfolk County Sheriff's Office, and you may know about that, Peter. There's 14 county sheriffs, and 7 of us have started on a pilot program called the Medication-Assisted Treatment Program. And in simple terms, the way that works is if somebody comes into us, they've been addicted to heroin, they're trying to get off of it. They may actually have a prescription for methadone or Suboxone, and we'll continue a regimen of medication with programming and a lot of behavioral health. So we don't just dispense the medicine, and I don't want people to think that, well, you're just keeping people on, you're swapping out one drug for another drug while they're incarcerated. We're getting to the root cause of what's wrong with that individual. What happened that they landed in our care and custody in the first place? How do we get them off of the drugs? And eventually the goal is get them clean and sober, get them a job, and get them to go be a self-sufficient person. When somebody leaves us, Peter, it's important to know, and the public really doesn't think of sheriffs this way, we make sure there's a continuum of care. So we may have somebody for 6 months. They do great. They have mental health services, they have medication, they're talking to their counselors, they're going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and Narcotics Anonymous meetings. They're making great strides, but if you just let them out the door at the end of their sentence, they're going to fall right through the cracks. So the continuum of care is really a handoff. We make sure they know when they leave us where the AA meetings are, where the NA meetings are, from their job and where they're going to live. We make sure that they know where all those meetings are, how to get there. If they don't have housing, if there's no family reunification, if sadly nobody in the family wants them back, which often happens with a drug addiction, they've burnt all their bridges, we'll make sure that they have housing, and we'll get them on mass health so that they have a better chance of success, because it's beneficial to all of us if they succeed and don't relapse, because if they go backwards and they relapse and they continue with their drug addiction, That's just headaches for all of us, and it's recidivism.
We're in the process now of putting a documentary about addiction, and we had in this studio, in the set to our left here, a number of addicts who are no longer addicts. Well, they still call themselves addicts.
Sure.
But they are in
recovery, yeah.
and they all said support groups were the keys for them to get over this addiction. Within the jail, while they're in your custody, do you have like AA type meetings where they have a chance to talk to each other, or is it one-on-one with a counselor?
So before COVID-19, we had those support groups where we could have larger gatherings. We do have the one-on-one now, and we have some things over video, but we are getting back slowly. As long as everyone's wearing a mask and socially distancing, staying 6 feet apart, we're getting bigger classroom sizes for AA and NA. And we have recovery coaches. I've got 2 great recovery coaches up at the jail, and one of them is very active himself in the Boston Bulldogs, which is a sober running club. And as you mentioned, Peter, a big key ingredient to staying clean and sober is having those peers, that network, that support group, and having another outlet. So something like jogging is a great outlet for people, and that they can lean on each other. But the worst thing is the isolation, the depression, the loneliness, the sense that they could slip through the cracks and fail. We even have a number that our inmates can call when they leave us. They can call and talk to a counselor. Not that we're trying to get them in trouble or call the police and say, look, you failed, you drank, you did drugs again. No, this person's there to help them through and get them back on track. And that's why anybody who's in recovery will tell you it's one day at a time. It really is one day at a time.
Percentage-wise, the number of people that you have in your custody right now, how many of them have addictions or some kind of substance abuse problem?
It's a great question. I would say, Peter, today we're looking at 70, low 70s, maybe as high as 75% of the men and women that come into our care and custody have a dual diagnosis of mental health issues and substance abuse disorder, addiction to drugs and or alcohol. It seems to go hand in hand, but it's that high. It's that high. So if they're involved with our court system, in our criminal justice system, it's usually because their life has spun out of control because of the alcoholism and the drug addiction.
Your answer makes me think of the call to defund police, which I don't support defunding police, but what I am hearing is that, you know what, if we could address these substance abuse issues while people are out on the street, I don't want to say there'd be less need for police, but there'd certainly be less
crime.
Less crime.
Yeah, so it's a big issue, but if you break it down into pieces, you can see where we as a society have got off track. So I started the Juvenile Task Force on Mental Health and Substance Abuse because what I've seen in the last 19 months that I've been sheriff, this all starts very young. These inmates didn't wake up one day in their 20s and decide they were going to be a drug addict. This all started way back, maybe 3rd grade, 4th grade. These kids are undiagnosed. They're not getting the mental health services that they need at a young age. I think our country still has this kind of, not everybody, but a little bit of an attitude towards mental health. We don't talk about that. It's kind of taboo. It's swept under the carpet. But until we put mental health on the same level platform with our medical care, we're not going to address the problem. So when kids fall through the cracks in school, by the time they're in junior high, they're self-medicating. They realize maybe they're bipolar or schizophrenia, or there's something, depression. But once they get drunk or once they get high, all that seems to go away temporarily. So they're already on the fast track for failure by the time they're in high school. If we could do something for these kids, by the age of 8, 9, 10 years old, we could change their trajectory and not let them go down that path. But most of the people I talk to, most of the inmates, they all have the similar story. The one guy was getting high at 9 years old, and the person who gave him his first marijuana cigarette, his first joint, was his father.
Wow.
He grew up watching his dad sell drugs out of the front seat of his car. And his dad said, don't be like me. Parents got divorced. The kid was shipped to Florida to live with an aunt, Mississippi to live with an aunt, back to the streets of Dorchester, ended up in Norfolk County with another cousin. And it was just a life of drugs and crime. And that story plays out over and over and over again. So we have to break the cycle. And to your point, I don't know that we want to defund the police. I would say if we had more services in the schools at an earlier age, more counseling, more social workers in the schools, and yes, keep a school resource officer there so that kids realize the police aren't the enemy. And in fact, I know that most school resource officers know each kid in their school by name, and is acting like a dad, acting like an uncle, acting like a big brother or sister, and being that guiding voice. So they're a plus. I think we should keep the school resource officers. I don't see that as a conflict. When it comes to the police, I don't think we should defund them at all, but within each department, professionalize the standards and training around substance abuse disorder and identifying mental health issues. Because Peter, you just hit a big topic. Even people on the autism spectrum, right? Anyone who has some degree on the autism spectrum, they may not listen to the verbal instructions of an officer. Now, many people I know who are on the autism spectrum are high functioning, and they could be driving a motor vehicle. They may not take orders the way you and I would, or follow instructions the way you and I would, and that might be seen as combative or being disrespectful to the officer. And the officer may not, know in that interaction, is this person on drugs? Why aren't they listening to me? So that's why we came up with something called the autism seatbelt covers, so that it will say right on there, I have autism, or I'm on the autism spectrum, I may resist help. So there's a lot of things we could do to make the relationship between police officers and all law enforcement and the public much better. But where we are today is we sit in this studio in North Attleboro talking about issues in Norfolk County. Where we are as a country, the country's on fire, and people have somehow pitted it that you're either with the police or you're against the police. It shouldn't be like that. We can always do better. I think anyone in law enforcement would tell you we should continue to have professional development, raise our standards. But I would say with a straight face that in Massachusetts, we are head and shoulders above the rest of the country. We're certainly not Minnesota. We don't have the types of police brutality issues that you hear about in other parts of the country, thank goodness. But we have work to do. But I think defunding, that maybe sends the wrong signal, and I think what we've seen around the country is in areas where the police have been handcuffed and funding has been pulled, huge spike in crime. New York City is a prime example where they were doing a great job getting the guns off the streets, which everyone's saying, don't you care about the black and brown communities? Why is there prevalence of guns so cheap and available on the streets? Are young people being killed? Well, under previous mayors, they had a task force with the New York City police. They went out and they got the guns off the streets, and they did it in a great way. Now they've been pulled back and defunded. The shootings have gone up over 200%. It's really madness out there right now, and we don't want to see anything like that happen in Norfolk County. We've got 28 great police departments, 28 great leaders and the police chiefs, and they really do know the people in their community so well that I think that kind of community policing and that partnership with the community is what's made Norfolk County the safe community that it is.
Back to the role of a sheriff again.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the jail in Dedham. Is that the one that's on both sides of 95?
Yes, it is. It's unique.
Yeah, it is unique. Now, Walpole is a state prison.
Correct.
What's the jail next to Walpole? Is that Norfolk?
Norfolk. Yep, you've got the both state prisons.
So that Norfolk prison is a state prison.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what we run is the House of Correction in Dedham, and it's between 128 North and South, right around exit 17. It's on the Needham-Dedham line, and my understanding is before it opened in the early 90s, there was a study to find a suitable location, and nobody wanted a jail in their backyard, right?
Good point.
So there were some college seniors, and it was their final project to find a suitable location, and that's how it came to be located where it is. And it's really a clean facility, even though it was built in the early 90s. It's showing some wear and tear. But right now, today, we've probably got about 305, 307 inmates up there. We've got 2 buildings, which is the main building, which is the House of Correction and Jail. And then we have another building, which is called the Dedham Alternative Center. And I'm in the process of retrofitting that to bring female inmates back to Dedham. Because when I took over as sheriff, what I realized right away, Peter, was the inequity. Female offenders were sent to MCI Framingham, not a nice place to do your time. So they were shipped to the more serious state facility, MCI Framingham. Nobody would like to go there to visit. Not even the defense attorneys like to go there. And I thought it's not fair that the men are getting an opportunity at all the rehabilitation programs and all the robust menu of college education and culinary arts and all of the other things that they could learn where the women were not getting equal treatment. So in the coming weeks, if not months, you'll see a facility open, and we're going to make it a little bit softer feel, more dormitory, less institutional. And my vision is to have to work on family reunification with DCF's blessing and with their counselor's blessing. Start having mom and child visits, and if it's good behavior and the counselors say they're approved, overnights. Because mom's getting out. She's coming back to that house, and she's going to have her custody of her children. We want to make sure there's parenting classes and every chance at success, again, to break the cycle. We don't want to have domestic violence issues. We don't want to have drug and alcohol abuse. We don't want to see children abused. So it's a lot of work that I think, as you mentioned in the early part of the segment, people think of sheriffs driving around in their sheriff's car and
well, now I'm
like
thinking of
Mayberry.
you. Now I'm thinking of you as the warden.
Yeah. Well, we are kind of social workers, and we put a heavy emphasis on our medical team and our mental health team and our programming. And we have rich programming up there so that people are, again, better people when they leave us than when they came in our doors.
So it's truly rehabilitation.
That's why we call it a house of correction.
Yeah.
We're trying to correct all the bad behavior that led them to be incarcerated in the first place. It's not easy. And again, I think it goes back to the schools. If we could identify those children that need help and support and services early, they wouldn't be those problematic children by junior high and high school and get the suspensions. Because when the kid is suspended and they're out in the streets, they're going to find trouble or trouble's going to find them. And it's just a vicious cycle.
You mentioned the impact of COVID-19 on support groups and having to do it online and so on. How much of an impact has the coronavirus had on your operation?
So Peter, the COVID-19 virus has impacted everybody, and it's certainly impacted some facets of our business. We also have a civil process division. So if somebody's being evicted or served notice for a divorce or what have you, whenever you need process served, you'd come to our civil process office in Quincy. Well, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, we heard from many state legislators and the Attorney General, and everybody said, cut everyone some slack. We don't want any process served. So that coupled with the courts shutting down really impacted our day-to-day operations. So we had to furlough close to 70 employees. So a lot of our business practices and our model all got put on pause. Also, those officers who would be driving the transport vans, bringing prisoners out in the community to do days of like cleanup or painting or weed whacking. We'd have inmate community work crews. That all stopped. We pulled that back. We weren't transporting people to and from courthouses. Everything was done by video conference. So it's impacted us a lot, and our inmate count actually went down for a period of time because the ACLU and Prisoner Legal Services and the Defense Attorneys Group, CPCS, got together, petitioned the Supreme Judicial Court and said, well, because of COVID-19, you're not going to be able to social distance in jails. Let everyone out of jails that hasn't been sentenced. So let these pre-sentenced folks out. Some of them had been arrested on some pretty serious charges, and we argued against that. All 14 county sheriffs, 7 district attorneys, the Mass Chiefs of Police Association, everyone said, time out. If you really care about this at-risk inmate population, many of whom are addicted to drugs and alcohol, they are safer in our jails getting the medical and mental health services they need, because nobody in their family wants them back right now, and you're going to render them homeless. So from a public safety and a public health perspective, it wasn't a good policy, but yet the Supreme Judicial Court ruled with the ACLU. We saw about 109 inmates in Norfolk County get let back out on the streets by court order, even though we were in opposition to it. We've seen overdoses, none fatal. We did have a fatality in Essex, as predicted. Essex County saw, these guys got out of jail. Family didn't want them back. It was either homelessness, a homeless shelter, or if they harmed themselves, they ended up being picked up by police, fire, EMS, and brought to our overcrowded emergency rooms, which we were all trying to keep those beds in emergency rooms open for COVID-19 patients. So it was just a bad policy move all around, and I think the courts, in retrospect, realize that. I think the judges are concerned, and they're hoping that as soon as this pandemic is over, or we lift all the states of emergency, we'll see those people coming back in and having their day in court, and then it'll either be adjudicated or they'll be sentenced.
A couple of programs that I've read about, senior program,
Yes.
and Yellow Dot.
Oh yeah. So again, our main focus is running a safe and secure jail and house of correction, the care, custody, control of inmates, but we have all these outward-facing programs for youth and for seniors. So for the seniors, one of the best programs, and you mentioned it, is the Yellow Dot program. This is a nationally recognized program where a simple yellow sticker goes on the rear driver's side of your vehicle, and all your pertinent medical information goes in this nice little pouch, and it goes in your glove box. So let's say we're in a car together, and I'm a member of the Yellow Dot, but I'm letting you drive that day. We have a motor vehicle accident, and we're both knocked unconscious. First responders are going to see the Yellow Dot, know to look in the glove box. They'll see my picture. They'll know that everything about me is on a piece of paper inside.
No, you don't
file.
mean you as the sheriff.
Not me as the sheriff, but anybody
the
who
person
signs
in the
up.
car.
So all of your, the medications you're on, and if you have any allergies, family members to contact, your primary care physician, any recent surgeries, you name it, all that information's there so that they can render the best medical care to you. So we tell everyone, sign up for the Yellow Dot, it's free. And when you're home, we ask people to sign up for what we call the File of Life. They could carry one on them. This one's the size of a credit card. It says File of Life. Again, all your pertinent medical information goes in here. So if you're out walking and it's snowing and you slip and fall, crack your head, whoever comes to help you will have all your information. This one has a magnet on it. It goes on your refrigerator, and first responders are trained when they go to your home, if there's a medical emergency, to look at this. And again, it has your name, you can put your blood type, you can put as much information you want, all your medications, if you have any allergies, recent surgeries, any recent implants, so that they can give you the best medical care possible. And all these programs are free. And what I like to say to my older brothers and sisters who are all baby boomers that are retiring every day, is it helps you live longer independently at home, so that you don't have to go into an assisted care facility because somebody's checking on you. And the last one, Peter, is the Are You OK program. And this is a great program. We'll call seniors, or earlier I mentioned people on the autism spectrum. If you have a loved one that you're concerned about, ideally this came out for seniors, but it could be for any family member. And we'll call you every day, 6 to 10 a.m., and it's a simple automated call. Are you okay? Press 1. You're not, press 2. It's monitored by our deputy sheriffs as well as Fallon Ambulance Service. So it's a partnership between Fallon Ambulance and the Norfolk County Sheriff, and it's free. People can sign up by calling 1-866-900-ARE-YOU-OK. And in the 19 months I've been sheriff, I think we've had about 12 saves where people have fallen, cracked their hips, cracked wrists. One poor lady, she got lightheaded. She got into the bathtub later in the evening after she watched our shows, Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and she got in the bathtub. She didn't have the upper body strength to get up out of the tub, and she fell faint. and she hadn't eaten. Almost 11 hours she was in that bathtub. And we had to go in through we call police through this program. We'll send a first responder, and they went in through her bathroom window. She's fine, thank God, but it's peace of mind, not just for our seniors, but for everybody in their family who may not be able to visit them as frequently as they'd like to. And with COVID-19, I think our seniors have felt more isolated than ever. And that simple Are You OK program is great because we can check on your loved one every day, or you may only want it 3 or 4 times a week.
Sounds like a variation of that Beatles song, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window.
That's right, that's a great one.
Virtual programming, do you offer any for people?
We do. So we've continued to do our scam prevention programming. We came up with a great PowerPoint presentation so that seniors are aware that the scam artists that are out there during tax time that try to call you and say they're from the IRS, we want to make seniors aware that the IRS will never call you. They always send a letter. That and the granddad granny scam is still very prevalent, where the scam artists will work as a team. They'll get a young person to call up and say they're a grandson or a granddaughter who's maybe traveled to Florida or Mexico. They got in trouble, they've been arrested, and they'll pressurize that senior. And they'll say, Granddad, don't tell Mom and Dad, but I need you to talk to this attorney. He's going to get me and my friends out of jail, post the bail, represent us in court, but we're in big trouble. We had open containers of alcohol, and we were in a car that got, a fender bender, but please don't tell Mom and Dad. Believe it or not, most of the grandparents, because they're acting through their heart, will wire the money. So they get on the phone with the accomplice, the attorney's fake, the young person that they just spoke to that pretended to be their grandson or granddaughter is a fraud. They usually will go on social media, and they'll see on Facebook or Instagram people that have traveled. It's pretty simple to nail down where they live. Let's say they live in Plainville. They can find out almost everything from your social media content about you, and then they trick your grandparents into wiring thousands of dollars. So we do this PowerPoint presentation, myself and Deputy Sheriff Joe Canavan, and we still offer that to all our councils on aging. So it's important out there, because even during the COVID-19 pandemic, Peter, you would think that people would be thinking, like we do, but these scam artists, they have no scruples. So they were calling people saying, we're from the government, we're trying to get your stimulus check into your bank account. Yeah. Could you confirm your checking account number, your bank routing number, and the last 4 of your social so that we can properly get you your stimulus money? They just never let up. So we want our seniors to be aware and just know if it doesn't seem right up here and in your gut, if you think it's a scam, just hang up on them. Call your local police department, report the call. If you can capture any information on caller ID, you'd actually be doing us a big favor by helping us crack down on them.
Jerry, I'm disappointed to say we are out of time. There's so much more I
Peter,
wanted
there's
to
so
cover.
much. Yeah, we've got to do this again.
You come on North TV. Tom Hodgkins is on Fox, but
Yeah.
Fox News. But you end up on North TV. But I think this is even more important.
It really is. And thank you for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. We've got to get you back. I was talking to Joe earlier. I had a ball talking to him.
Great.
He's from Archbishop Williams. You're from Catholic Memorial. I'm from Bishop Ian. We could have gone on for hours.
Oh, sure.
We'll make sure the sheriff comes back in the coming months. Thank you for watching this edition of Inside Government.